With more on the situation in Iran, we're joined on the phone here in Washington with James Phillips. He is a senior research fellow for Middle Eastern Affairs at the Heritage Foundation. We heard from the president earlier today. My question is, who makes the next move in the region? What potentially are you looking for?
Well, I think it looks like Iran may be temporarily willing to step down from tensions and step back, kind of lower the temperature of the confrontation. However, there is a report that Qais al-Khazali, who leads an Iran-backed militia, has called for his followers to follow up on the initial response of the Iranians and launch further attacks. And if that happens, I think, unfortunately, we'd be back to square one.
We have learned a lot over the last couple of days about the now killed Iranian General Qassem Soleimani. For Iran, its government and its military, from your perspective, how big of a deal was this?
Well, I think from Iran's perspective, this was huge because General Soleimani wasn't just a military or terrorist leader. He actually functioned as Iran's viceroy for not only Iraq, but Syria and Lebanon. And all the ambassadors of those countries formerly served under him in the Quds Force, the Special Operations Branch of the Revolutionary Guard Corps. So he was controlling not only military and militia and terrorist networks, but also Iran's diplomatic and foreign policy in that part of the world. In addition, he was known as a war hero from the Iran-Iraq War back in the 80s, and the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, considered him to be a son and a very close political follower. And for that reason, General Soleimani had extensive freedom to operate and latitude to take initiative that I think his successor will not have.
But he was also a senior government official, and I mention that because many on Capitol Hill, among Democrats especially, saying that it may have been justified, but it wasn't a wise decision by the president.
Well, I would agree that it was justified, and I think it will kick over a hornet's nest, or it already has in Iraq, but it's important to remember that this is the beekeeper that kept Iran's hornet's nest, and if he was still alive and functioning, he'd be setting up even more dangerous situations in the future.
We're talking with James Phillips of the Heritage Foundation. And so does his death either further escalate tensions between the U.S. and Iran, or is this a pivot moment for rapprochement between our two countries?
I think in the short run it has escalated tensions, and I think it will take many months for that to dissipate. But on the other hand, it does seem like the Trump administration and the Iranian government are both pausing to reflect on what's happened, and this could provide a diplomatic opening. And I remember back in the 1980s, the accidental downing of an Iranian airliner that flew over U.S. ships that were fighting battles in the Persian Gulf with the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Navy. That accidental downing of that Iranian airliner led Ayatollah Khomeini to end the Iran-Iraq war that he had consistently rejected, and I think in part because he feared that the U.S. would enter the war on Iraq's side. And Khomeini at that point accepted UN mediation that he previously had rejected, and said that he was forced to drink a chalice of poison because of the accidental downing. And if that is a precedent that holds some relevance, then it is possible that this uptick in tensions now could be a shock that leads to some kind of a diplomatic opening down the road.
We will follow your work at heritage.org. James Phillips, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.